Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Tara Time. I am bringing you another wonderful guest and somebody who's had an impact on my life, on my business, and who is a wonderfully inspirational and interesting human being. And I'm going to invite her in now and let her introduce herself. So I like to call her a word wizard because that is exactly what she is. Welcome, Fiona Green from the Creative Copywriter. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, Tara. It's lovely to be here. So my name's Fiona. I own the Creative Copywriter, which is a copywriting agency for the new wave of entrepreneurs, people that like some badass word wizardry. I used to only work with females, but actually now I have several male clients, which is quite nice because we're quite aligned with each other. So that works out well. But essentially, I help entrepreneurs to write words that connect with their target audience and convert them into loyal paying clients or customers. And it's kind of twofold. I do done for you services. So I have a range of clients who either want project work or they're retainer clients. So they've got me in their back pocket every month to just write what they need to write, whether it's websites, funnels and sales pages, opt-in pages, email sequences, social media posts that go with launches, and there's a few blogs and things like that in there as well. But I am there to provide for them. And then the other kind of half of my business is I have a Facebook group, and I teach entrepreneurs how to write for themselves. And actually, this is something that I'm developing a little bit more because as my business has developed and continued, as much as I love the writing, I found that I just adore one-to-one talking and teaching with people. You have had the experience of being in Copy Club, which is
I have
a monthly kind of epic group coaching for copywriting, essentially. And I just love that interaction with people and teaching them. And I think for some people, they don't want to pay people. They want to learn how to do it for themselves. And this is a lifelong business skill that you can use, because if you understand in detail and depth your brand and your target audience, you can then create the business messaging that works and connects with them. And you'll know how to do it for everything that you write from your business, from websites to social media to emails and everything. And you can tweak it yourself as you grow and develop and change, like we all do in business. So yeah, that's kind of my twofold pronged approach to my business.
I think so when I first started my business, I knew little to nothing. I didn't even know what the word copywriting meant. And I'm sure there'll be people who watch this, and especially in my audience, because I've got a mix of business owners, entrepreneurs, and also leaders who work in organizations. And I knew absolutely diddly squat about it. I didn't really even know of it I certainly didn't know of it as a profession or a thing. It was just not something that was in my periphery. But as I have grown as a business owner and realized the importance of our words and our brand and our messaging and all of that stuff, I have this retrospective look now thinking, fuck, like if I'd have known more about that when I was employed, when I was working in a career, like it's just as relevant there. And it's something that I think is missed and is overlooked, the importance of the words that you use. And you said something to me when I was developing my very, very first offer, and you did a copy review on, do you remember when I did the leap? I launched the leap and I'd written the copy page and I was stuck between, because I served 2 clients, and I was like, well, I serve leaders in organizations and I serve business owners as well. And you said at the end of the day, when you're a leader, you're always selling yourself, whether you're selling yourself for a job or if you're a leader of a business and you're selling your products, you're always selling yourself, and you need to know how to do that and how to word it and things like that. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. So actually, if you're watching this live, come and say hello to us. Tell us who you are and what you do and where you're coming from if you're here live in the comments. And if you're on the replay, do hashtag replay and let us know too. But I don't know, what do you think about that in terms of the written word and personal branding and messaging and selling yourself?
It's so interesting that you've said that, because that is exactly what I've experienced over the past few years, is that when people, to start with, I'll just talk about businesses, but when people start out in business, you kind of have a list of things that you think or you know that you need. I need a logo, I need a name. Of course you need a name.
Yeah.
But you know, I need this and I need this, and people work on social media strategies or various other things. Nobody actually thinks about the words that they use. And this is the first thing that I have to explain to people when I first meet them or when I first start doing training with new people and stuff, is actually what is copy, which is simply just words that sell. And I'll say, you know, everything that you write is copy, even if some people would class it as content. And there's a slight difference between copy and content. But the way I teach things, I'm a brand copywriter. So it's all about storytelling. And so that has this mix of content and copy together. So it is literally everything that you would write online for your business. And that is just goes hand in hand with being a leader in any profession. Like you say, whether it's written or whether you're speaking, you know, if you devise a speech, you're giving a presentation or anything like that, you're thinking about your scripts and very carefully how you word things, and portraying who you are, what you can give to people, how you can help people. It's exactly the same whether you're an entrepreneur with your own business or whether you're in a leadership profession, and either striving for a promotion or just wanting to be seen and heard on a different level. You need to be thinking about these words, because the more thought you put into it, I feel like the stronger you will stand up and stand out from the rest of the team or your colleagues or whoever you're working with.
Yeah, I think the personal, like the how does it relate to you is the most important part. And again, one of the many, many lessons that you've taught me, Fiona, over the years, or the year, should I say? It feels like it's been longer. Is like I remember writing it was, again, I think maybe I brought it to Copy Club, and it was one of the sales pages. And I am a very, very sweary person. That is who I am. If like the first thing I'm going to be saying to me, well, you're going to surprise people if you don't use it in your emails, or and then you get on a call with someone and you're effing and jeffing. They're going to be like, oh, who on earth is this? I don't recognize this person from all of the posts that I've read. And so I was like, oh my God, yeah, like I would literally scare people away because I have no ability to stop that. It comes out, it is who I am. And I do. And there's obviously certain things that we have to do when we're writing on social media platforms so that we don't get put in jail and all that kind of stuff, because that has happened regularly to me as well. But it's, you know, I was like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. Like that is how I speak. That is a really important part of my brand, is that I'm extreme, and that tells people how forthright I am, how zero tolerance of bullshit I am, how I am going to kick your ass if you don't do the shit that you say you're going to do. I am. And it gets that message across, but it's like I say, that's the words part of it that is personal to me. And when I first started, if you go back and look at my copy from when I first started, you know, I thought I was being bold and being me and authentic then, but compared to what it's like now, it is just totally different, because I've stepped into like being me in my words. And what the fuck is this, right? Why can we not naturally write how we speak? Why do we start writing like a weird robot when we put pen to paper, or we start writing captions? What is that about?
Because, and this is potentially something that we might delve into later, it's the conditioning. It is the conditioning that we have had growing up within schools, and you're taught how to write in a certain way, and you're taught how to present an argument or something in a particular way when you're writing. And I appreciate that to pass English exams, history exams, whatever it might be, you would probably need that type of writing. But I think then subconsciously it's ingrained within us that to be professional, you have to present yourself in a certain way, the way you speak and the way you write. And in this online world, sorry, kind of going a little bit back to the entrepreneur side of things now, but in this online space, that is not true, because people, I kind of hate this cliche saying, but they're no like trust. of the world. But it's kind of true that, and for people to be able to get to know, like, and trust you on a level that matters, because brand copywriting is all about emotions and connecting with people through emotions. And it's quite a tricky thing to do, but you make it even harder for yourself if you are not your authentic self. So you can still be professional, but F and Jeff at the same time.
Yeah. And I would challenge that is just brought back to the entrepreneur space, because now I live in the world of LinkedIn now. It is fast becoming my most preferred platform to work on. There's a whole piece around LinkedIn and what people's perceptions of LinkedIn is. And this obviously loads, is filled with professionals, career professionals there as well, and leaders. And the ones that are standing out now are the ones that the people who are bringing their personal brand, their personal tone, their voice, their authenticity, all of that. They're the ones that are standing out now. And that is just as relevant. And I think there's this, concern around, I'm representing a company, whether it's your own company or a company that you work for. Well, I'm representing them, so I need to be. No, actually, you're representing you, because people work with people, and people will remember that fantastic human who shared that fantastic story that they connected with, who works for XYZ. They're not thinking to remember of the company first. They're thinking to remember the human first. And so that, like you say, that human element, that emotional connection is so important. And it shows in every post that you do, like, even just kind of writing style aside for a second, content wise, hands down, every time you either share or overshare, well, I don't know how, I might probably overshare, or you share a piece of your personal life or a personal story, like, all of the people come out of the woodwork to like it and to enjoy it. And it's the most popular thing. Like, I remember there's a post about me having a stinking migraine one time. It had nothing to do with anything else. And I was just sharing about having a terrible migraine, or one about the dog, on how I like to take it's that personal connection. Like, make sure that the things you're doing have personal connection.
Absolutely. Like, some of my most popular posts have either been when I've been talking quite openly and deeply about depression, or when I was online dating, and some of the stories or things that I would share with people about, like, the horrific nature of online dating. Like, they were the posts that people would interact with more. And I think that's why I like being a brand copywriter, because I try to teach people how to integrate that into sales posts. And they don't get as much kind of action as some of the other posts do. But if you're able to integrate that emotional, personal storytelling sense with a call to action that might have a sales kind of element to it, then obviously that's like the beauty. That's the dream.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Sam has just written in the comments, when I was a nursery officer, I used to get pulled from the teacher for not speaking properly. That's my accent. It made me feel I was pretending who I was. And I think that's a really interesting point. And I think people can sniff that, whether you're writing, whether you're speaking. I genuinely think people can sniff it a mile off when you're not being your authentic self. But you're right, we get put in situations where we're told to speak in a different way, or we're told to, curb this, or you don't want to say that, or you don't want to make that joke, or you don't want to be swearing in this situation. So we have to check ourselves and, is that the right, should I be saying that? And it's very difficult.
And I do think it is harder in a professional sense, not impossible. But I think again, it's that mindset and worry, you're working for somebody else. You are kind of representing them, and you worry about what they might think or what they might feel. And so you do keep yourself in check a little bit more with stuff like that. It's a similar thing. I don't work with professionals, but I do work with network marketers. And it's a slightly similar type of thing, whereas obviously they work for a company. But what I'm trying to get with them, it touched on what you said earlier on, is that you're not selling the company. You're not even selling the products to a degree. You're selling yourself, because there's a million tropic ladies out there who I know, but I have a specific tropic lady that I go to for a particular reason because I connect with her and I work with her, and it's the same in any kind of industry. So I do think like that network marketing thing is a bit similar to the professional, and they seem to have more stress and worry about how they can present themselves online in particular.
Yeah, you're right. But like I say, people connect with people, people buy from people, people work with people. Like that is the bottom line of it. And if you can find ways as well, I think, that you can represent your company, you can do that. And also there's a piece of alignment as well, especially if you're working for somebody else, to ask yourself questions about, are you aligned with their brand values?
Yeah.
Because if you're finding it extremely difficult, there might be something a little bit deeper there, that you're somewhere where you really shouldn't be, because you're not aligned with the values that they have, and it's very difficult for you to represent them because it's not you.
Absolutely.
And maybe there's a time for a shift as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think just making everybody aware of the importance of your words, whether you are, like I said, whether you're a business owner, whether you're employed. How could you take, what would be one step actually, if you could give somebody some advice to be slightly more self-aware about the words they're using? What's one thing that they could do to kind of bring that awareness to their lives?
One thing, blimey. I'm probably going to give you a few now, purely because we are not one element. We are made up of so many different aspects and things in our lives. And I think when I do copywriting training with people, when they do further training with me, they're quite surprised at how much we work on this background stuff. I do a 12-week program that's like from start to finish in terms of copywriting and getting kind of everything sorted and tangible resources and things like that. But we spend 4 or 5 of those weeks working on you, so to speak, before we start doing any writing whatsoever. And that's kind of threefold. It's thinking about your business strategy, because that feeds into everything that you do. But then it's thinking about you as a brand and your target audience. So if we're looking at you as a brand, as a person, I have a couple of like different activities that I get people to do. One of which is to think of 5 descriptive words that would describe you. So it could be that you're bold and vibrant, or it could be that you're sleek, chic, boho, like all these kind of descriptive words. And I try to get people to do, just sit, have some space for 5 minutes, maybe put on a meditation or something if you like that kind of thing, and just kind of feel the words. How do you feel? Then I get them to think about their brand values and their ethics. So, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? And this doesn't specifically need to be business related. It's in general, because again, especially with the people I'm working with, it's all about you as a business. So, I have mine written down in my office. So like I have 5 words, which are freedom, growth, independence, passion, and kindness. Those 5 words describe my values and ethics as a person. And if I'm true to those values and ethics, they should feed into everything that I do, including my business and how I show up online and things like that. And then I also get people to do the 5 whys. So kind of write a sentence. So if you're an entrepreneur, write a sentence about like who you are and who you help. And then, but ask why, and ask 5 times, because what we're trying to do is like dig a lot deeper than the surface level stuff. A lot of people I work with know this surface level stuff. And when I say, who's your target audience? And they'll tell me this surface level stuff. But we do a lot of stuff to dig a lot further down, because that's where you get the emotions, whether it's yourself or with your target audience. So again, if you're in the leadership industry, think about, what you do and why you do it. And ask yourself several times, but why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why do I do this? And hopefully you'll dig to a deeper level of connection to your purpose, to what you're on this planet to do, and how you make an impact, and how you have a change, and how you affect other people's lives and stuff. And that's the information that we want. Like, deep down there.
Yeah, and I would stand by that. That exercise is super useful as well. And I'd done that for my business right at the beginning, and we have some shared values. Freedom for one of them, adventure is one of mine. Another, it's not actually one word; it's 3 little words, but they live together. It's in my element. Everything I'm only doing things that absolutely have me being in my element. And then like you talk about words to describe like your brand voice or how that wants to come across. Recently. My collaboration with Jess at Vida Femme, when we did that exercise, that was the thing that just clicked stuff together.
Yeah,
we were like, yeah, this is it. This is how it's been. And we hadn't we've been planning all of this stuff. You're like, like you say, we'd gone out for all the other stuff. Like, what are we going to provide and who are we going to provide it? But who the fuck are we actually? Who are we before we start that? When you're coming together with somebody else, that's a really interesting piece as well. If you're doing a collaboration, who are you together?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have different things. You're going to have common things, and you're going to have new things that are born when you create that collaboration as well. So I love that. And I obviously in your work, not mainly because the 5 whys, but as you've just gone through there about digging into the you, but the 5 whys is one of my favorite coaching exercises, just full stop for anything. Because I love to scratch deep. I really love to scratch. I'm like, scratchy, let's get a little bit deeper in there. And the 5 whys, you can do it for so many things. Like at least once a week, I've got somebody whying themselves to death. But your work is such and I know that you're certified and qualified in both. It's such a beautiful combination of copywriting and life coach. Like it's such a beautiful combination of those two things.
Because, and that's, I signed up a new client recently and I had this conversation with them. And we were doing a lot of this work behind the scenes work. And she got really upset over something. And so we kind of coached through what it was that came up for her and stuff. And I was trying to explain that, especially in this world, your business is your life. You are your business. They're so inherently intertwined together that actually separating them out makes no sense whatsoever. So we need to do things together. So yeah, I am accredited life coach. And I'm just studying. I've just started a course now to do my a qualification in neuro-linguistic programming because I think it feeds well into how I work with people, but also the way people's minds work and stuff like that in terms of writing copy and how you can connect with people. I think it'll be really, really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam's just put in here as well, your program was what helped me understand alignment, being an entrepreneur, my mindset. And I remember my 5 words being a very long list initially. And I think we do have so many things that, when you first start, but I feel like when you go through them, you can be like, okay, well, these are a bit similar. These are a bit similar, and you'll get there in the end. And I read a wonderful book once, and I recommend this about once a week. I recommend this book to people, and it's called The Desire Map Experience. It was an audio book actually I listened to by Danielle Laporte, and she does it a slightly different way. She doesn't call them values; she calls them core desired feelings. How is it you want to feel?
Yeah.
So rather than the word being freedom, it then becomes, I want to be free. And that's where one of mine, I want to be in my element, comes from. How do you really want to feel all of the time? Which I really love as another way to look at it. And when I started that, my list was absolutely massive, really, really long and big. And it just took an exercise to get through it. But yeah, our words matter. Absolutely, our words matter. Okay, I think that's enough about words. Let's get down and dirty. Let's get into the whys and the down and dirty. So there's a couple of topics, and I think what I would like to start with, and you've mentioned it a little bit earlier about when you were talking about your most popular post. So when you start to talk about you and what you've been through and where you are now, and so tell me, in fact, tell everybody your story. What's your story? Because I think that will just demonstrate to everybody about how they need to be able to tell their story, and it will get us into this next topic. Tell us your story.
I usually start the story with Ted's birth. Ted is he'll be 3 next month. My only child, and will only be my only child. Bless him. But actually, I think we all have things that happen to us that feed into a catalyst of something. My dad died when I was 22. He was an alcoholic. I had 2 miscarriages before I had Ted, and they were classed as missed miscarriages. So your body thinks that you're still pregnant, and you don't find out until you go for the scan, and then you have to have like surgery or whatever to sort it out. And this was something that I'd never heard of before. And I thought it was like the weirdest thing, you know, like we see on TV and things like that, miscarriages being this experience where you can feel and you know it's happening and stuff. And I didn't have that. So it was strange. But then when you start talking, when I eventually started talking, when I eventually started sharing things with people, so many women came out of the woodwork and said, oh, I've experienced that and I've experienced that. And again, it's that thing of, if we just talked a little bit more openly, then I would I felt more supported? Would I have felt more like there was other people going through similar things? Yeah. Maybe I would have still felt quite alone, because it's quite an isolating thing to go through. It's your body and it's hard to share that with someone, including your partner. But then we had Ted during lockdown, which was interesting. Lockdown baby. No, you know, you hardly got any midwife visits or anything like that. And I was fine for about a month after I had him. And then I have no idea what happened, but I just had a full-on breakdown and just slipped into really, really bad depression. My husband was really supportive. And him in particular, and my mum as well, kind of clicked that something was really bad, and got me a doctor's appointment. And the NHS were actually really, really good. I think it was a combination of, because it was lockdown and lots of people were experiencing mental health problems, but also because I was a new mum responsible for a child. They got to me quite quickly, and I went through various different forms of counselling, CBT, stuff like that, which was fine. Some of it worked, some of it now I don't think necessarily worked very well, but they were there for me. But during this time, I literally made a decision to just pack up and change everything. So I left my husband, I left my job, I left my house, my dog was the worst bit. And pretty much just moved back in with my mum for a little bit and she gave me the support that I needed while I was getting better. And I focused solely on me. And that time out that not a lot of people get to have, actually. You know, sounds strange for me to say I'm really lucky, but that period in my life has completely changed my life. And at the time, everyone was really worried and was saying you can't make big decisions when you're depressed. It's like a thing, like if you Google it, they're like, don't let people make big decisions because they're not in the right frame of mind and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. However, 3 years down the line, I know I've still made the right decision.
You're always an exception to the rule. You can always be an exception to the rule, Fiona.
But being able to have that time out to go really back to basics, to find out who I was. I had no idea who I was. I'd spent a lot of time looking after my dad, and then I'd spent a lot of time, and then literally my dad died and I got with my husband. So I went from one man to another, being somebody, being a people pleaser, being there to support other people, and never really kind of thought a lot about what I needed, what I want, who I was, to the point where I wasn't even sure what my favourite flavour of crisps were, because I know. They are now Worcester sauce.
Everybody just take a moment and a note and a mental picture of what Fiona has just done there, because that is the example of the word wizardry and the storytelling that you talk about, because that is what I will remember. That little shocking level of personal fact, right? That you couldn't remember, like that ties me to an emotional feeling. If you didn't even know what flavor of crisps, like, because I know it's salt and vinegar immediately for me. Like, I know that immediately. Right, carry on.
It's a big thing. I mean, you know, just that kind of thing about thinking about social media, like questions is, what is your favorite flavor of crisps? Something that everybody can relate to and stuff. But so it's a relatable thing. But even if you've not had depression, you you still have that connection of like, I suppose disbelief, like you don't even know these particular things about yourself because of the way that you've lived your life. So yeah, and then literally a friend who was a life coach got in touch. She was my friend at school, and that was the start of a new journey. I started doing some writing for her, and that started off this whole journey into being a copywriter, but also into a world of mindset, personal development, growth, spirituality. I'm not full on woo-woo, but I do kind of like a moon cycle and the odd crystal. Yeah. So and a whole area of me that I didn't know about, and a whole world that I didn't even know existed. This online space was something that I'd never even realized was a thing. So it was complete revelation in terms of me and creating a whole new life. And 2.5 years later, still going strong.
I think that's a wonderful story, though all I can think about is the crisps. This goes back to knowing who you are as well, though, right? Like that stuck with, the reason that stuck with me is because I'm very lucky in that I've always known exactly who the fuck I am. Like, that is one thing that has been very crystal clear to me forever. And that's what I use now. That's what I realize is a superpower. I didn't realize what was a superpower before, or was a thing that other people didn't have necessarily, because it was just the way I was, and it was just what I knew. And like, one of my biggest strengths now, and one of the pieces of training that I do over and over again and on repeat, and I will do until literally the day that I die, is helping people uncover their own superpower, what makes them unique and what makes them them, right? What makes them very much them. And knowing that, and irrespective, like, there's a whole piece about, you know, being seen as that and having other people see and having your brand messages, all of that. But the most important thing is you knowing that. Just you knowing who you are and what you stand for and what's important. Because suddenly when you do, decisions become a lot easier. You don't get stuck in indecision because you know what your values are and you know what you stand for and you know what you want out of life and you know what you believe in. You know, the way you show up becomes a lot simpler and a lot, you know, a lot less overthinking of, should I be this person? Should I be that person? Who am I? What am I doing here? You know, it's okay, though, I am sure that I am this person. I am sure that this is who I am and this is what I like and this is what I need and this is what I want from life. So I think it's, getting to that point of knowing yourself and knowing who you are. What bits of personal development work? Because we talk about personal development and mindset work, and it's just a big blanket term for most people. What do you think have been the most impactful pieces of work you've done to help you to get to know yourself?
Oh, that's a big question. I think in the first instance, just understanding the next step. So I had been through lots of kind of counseling, CBT and stuff I'd mentioned earlier on, and they did help. Some of it made a difference. I wasn't a massive fan of CBT, but I think with pregnant new mums, it doesn't work right. But that's a whole other conversation. But I was left feeling something was missing. Like I'd addressed past things, but I needed something else. And just stepping into the world of, and it was life coaching, to think about future, but it wasn't even about the future. It was about now. It was about understand. So these are the things that really stick in my head. It's like understanding that more kind of neural pathways to do with the brain. And maybe this is because I'm just fascinated with how the brain works and stuff like that. And that's why I've started doing my NLP course. But like how, you know, we let our emotions overrun us, or we don't actually step into the emotion properly and feel it. We let it wash over us completely. There's nothing wrong with having feelings and emotions, but learning how to step back from that and objectively look at things and experience it rather than either pushing it away, burying it in the sand, or letting it completely overwhelm us, is something that I find really interesting. And I do a lot of reading on stuff like this. And don't get me wrong, I'm like rubbish at it, but trying like all the time.
Are you? Are you rubbish at it, Fiona, or am I going to pull you up on that?
Well, I'm improving and learning, but and this is what I love as well, that it's continuous learning forever and ever. Mm-hmm. There is never a finished end. There is never a destination to get to. It is totally constant. And one of the, I mean, I've read a lot of books, as I'm sure you have, but one of the best books that really connected with me was one called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, I think it was. And it was quite a hard read in terms of some of the language that was used and stuff. But it was the first book I'd really read that kind of introduced this idea of stepping back and I suppose almost viewing yourself from a, out of body experience type of thing, and just kind of, but in doing that, having a little bit more control over reactions and reacting to other people and other situations and things like that. And that's another big thing, I think, as well, like just taking that time to let things sit rather than react immediately, because that is something that I would do, and because I'm quite a sensitive person, and that's not a bad thing. And so understanding my needs, and that some of my needs are not a negative, but making sure that the people around me support those needs. So, I mean, and this is just because with the dating stuff in particular, and it fed into like a lot of my past history and stuff, but I was really fascinated with attachment theory and kind of learning about, the experiences that we have growing up and how those have an effect on us and how we navigate relationships, older, not just sexual relationships, but, with friendships and colleagues and things like that as well. And I mean, I've read quite a few books on it, but it was that I had a good childhood. Like, you don't have to have experienced severe trauma.
Yeah.
That kind of conditioning, programming, certain things that our parents may say, and they're not bad people at all, but they've lived in a certain world and they were brought up in a generation that said certain things, and how these things can have a massive effect on us. And I had this conversation, I mentioned it to you, about for the first year of me being self-employed, of me being an entrepreneur, which has taken me a long time to say that word, because it felt like that it's a toy thing. I'm playing at it. That's mindset stuff. But my mum would keep popping in and be like, when are you going to get a proper job? You need that stability. You need that assurance. And it's like, I think a lot of people experienced it during COVID. Just because you're employed doesn't necessarily mean that it's stable or it's secure. And so it's a lot of work. I had to do a lot of work around that, and also kind of be quite firm in my boundaries and how I spoke to her about it as well. And she's not mentioned it for a good 8 months now, at least. So I think she's that I can actually make money doing this.
And well, yeah. So, what you mentioned to me was, you can't have X, Y, Z if you don't have a proper job, right? And I think you're like, this is a really interesting point. Like, you need a proper job to get yourself a house and to get yourself this, that, and the other. Like, talk about that a little bit, and how that manifested itself for you.
Well, so after living with my mother for 2 years, really felt like I needed to get my own place. But it was a struggle because I'm self-employed, because I was a single mum on my own. Even just renting seemed to be a bit of a struggle, because people at the time when I was looking, the marketplace was mental. So many people were wanting to rent. Like, if you didn't answer an ad or a thing about a new rented property within 5 minutes, they cut it off at like 20 people, and you wouldn't even get to see the house. And even then, when you went, I remember I went to see one property, and the fence was all broken and the paving slabs outside were all broken, and I just said, would the landlord fix this? I've got at the time 18-month-old who loves playing outside, and it's not safe for him. And the estate agent just said, I won't even ask him, because there's Joe Blogs next that's coming to view it next, who won't care that the garden's broken. I was really struggling for ages, and trying to find a mortgage and just working out a way that I could have a property by myself. And there's a lot of fighting, a lot of kind of stress and stuff like that. But eventually did manage it, and I moved into my own house in December, and which people said I won't be able to do. And I've just bought a car. So when I moved in, so I couldn't drive, but I didn't have a car, and I didn't dare get one because I thought I need to pay for all this stuff by myself. But then that freedom, that independence that's part of my values were being restricted because I couldn't just do what I wanted to do. And so then I've just gone and bought a car, and I'm actually going to pick it up from Doncaster on Sunday.
Amazing. Well, that is what I want to hear. And that just goes into the point of, like, you can start to make decisions when you know what your values are. When you know they're being compromised, you can make difficult decisions, hard decisions, whether it's big purchases, whether it's changing your career, whatever it is. You can make big decisions a lot more easily when you're tuned into your own values and what's important to you. And let Fiona be a lesson to everybody that you can do whatever the fuck you like, even if you don't have a proper job. I bet this one I get that I'm like, go away. When will you settle down and put some roots down? I'm not a fucking tree. Good luck. Like, I don't need, like, that's this expectation. Oh, you need to have a home base. Like, where do you go back to? I'm like, don't worry about that. That's not a problem for me. That might be a problem for you, but it's not a problem for me. And I remember having like a super heated argument with one of my family members about this, who was, I mean, you know, Fiona, like, somebody to try and put any level of restriction or impose somebody else's opinion on your lifestyle. I think everybody should live their life in exactly the way they want to live their life, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. Mm-hmm. And so I had a very heated argument, which resulted in me shouting, "I'm not a fucking tree! I'm not a tree! I don't need roots!" So, you know, do as you please. Follow your heart. Like, I mean, do it sensibly. Take calculated risks, and you know, you will work out those things if you're clear on what it is that you want and you take action.
Calculated, but with a degree of pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're never going to grow. And literally, like, I mean, I say the house and the car and stuff, but some of the money that I've invested in myself and my business this year, you know, several thousands of pounds, which if you'd have said
squeaky bum.
If you'd have said that a year ago, there'd have been no way on earth that I could have ever considered spending that amount of money on anything, let alone myself or my business. But this year, I've done it, and I've done it with very little questioning, because I know what I need to do, where I want to go. I've got my values, and I've got to head that way. Sometimes your bum does go like this a little bit.
Yeah. Squeaky bum. Squeaky bum decisions are the best decisions. They always have the best outcome. I'm telling you, like, that is for sure. I think that's a social post in the making. Squeaky bum decisions.
Squeaky bum.
Sure. I'm already thinking of, after my recent, I don't know if you saw my recent bald pussy post that I had about fanny tax, and I had a picture of a bald cat. I'm just trying to think of the image that's going to go with the squeaky bum decisions and I will put it on LinkedIn, as I did my last one, and we'll just wait for somebody to react. Anyway, just before we go, and there was one thing that I wanted to talk about, especially where you are, and as you introduce yourself at the beginning, you are now an agency. You know, you are building a team of people. You are a copywriting agency now, and I think just to touch on building teams and leading people, and where you are with that right now, and how you feel about it. I think I would just like to dig in. That's it. That's all I'm going to ask.
Look, scary as fuck, and still like, I want to grow, and I wanted an agency. Before Christmas, I made attempts to do this, and it went wrong. And I think it burnt me a little bit, and I was a bit nervous to step back in there again, and I have done just the past few weeks. I think that lesson in itself, I wouldn't do that again. I'd jump straight back on the horse, so to speak. Because we've just talked about, that kind of pushing yourself just slightly outside of that comfort zone is only ever going to be the thing that makes you grow and stuff. And mistakes in doing that, I literally put a post in a few groups and had mental amounts of people DMing me, people who clearly not read the post. I was specific in some of the things that I was asking for. And it was just ridiculous amounts. But then the people pleasing side of me came up because I felt like I had to respond to every single one. Otherwise I would be seen rude, and I don't want people to see me as rude. And about, I don't know, 30 or 40, and I thought, I can't do this. This is fucking ridiculous. Like, just if people see you as rude, I don't care. And then all last week was super draining because I just had call after call after call. With about 8 people, and I had a whole bunch of copywriting questions to ask them, and in the end, I didn't even end up asking half of them because I could tell within 5 minutes if I wanted to be with this person or not. Because the one thing that I have talked about is that I want to grow something together with someone, in the understanding that it's my business. I want someone so I asked for someone who was trained copywriter, who loved writing, but just didn't want the business, the brand, to network, to advertise, to market, and clients and all that kind of stuff, and didn't want to deal with any of that kind of thing. But I want us to grow together. I want to develop a relationship. I don't want to be employing somebody. I want someone who cares and has the same values that I have. And so actually I ended up abandoning my questions and kind of just went on gut instinct and kind of asked certain things where I thought I would get to see elements of their personality and who they were as a person rather than their writing skills. Because I thought, I can mold them. I can train them if I need to. What's more important is the person rather than the skills. So that was an interesting lesson that I've learned. And so now,
sorry, go on.
Now I have found someone, in theory. We'll see how it goes. But now we're just starting to navigate how we'll work together, because I've not really done that before. What does that look like? Are we going to use Asana or Trello boards or Google Drive or, all these different... And I think sometimes as well, I overcomplicate things. I feel like I need to have this platform that we work on together because that's more professional, rather than just using Google Drives and sharing stuff and, things like that. So it'll be interesting, but it's quite exciting to develop this with somebody, and hopefully it will work well.
And I just think the point that you made there about actually abandon the copywriting questions and ask some questions about them just ties in with exactly what we were saying before. And even the people who know this inside out forget it sometimes, is that people work with people employ people, like, it's all people. Yes, like you say, we can train skills, we can do all of that, and skills are important. Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, you're going to be working with that person. Like you say, you're going to be in a partnership with that person, and people first. That's the most important thing. And if that's, I think that's, again, the most important lesson and, conversation to be having when it comes to leading teams. How are you treating people like people? Like, when you're leading that team, are you remembering that there's a person behind the work? Are you remembering that there's a person with a family, with a, you don't know what's going on or whatever that is? Just remembering that there's people behind whatever you're thinking right now. I say this phrase, and we'll kind of end on this because I know that you've got to run, but when things can go sour or can go wrong, or things aren't quite as we want them to be, whether that's a piece of work that's not right or somebody's behavior is not right, that we're working with. I said nobody, and it's a general statement, but not many people walk out the front door every morning, get in the car or get on the train to work and go, do you know what? I'm going to be so shit today. I'm going to piss everybody off. I'm going to do crap quality work. I'm going to do, that's exactly what I want from the day. That is what I am going to do. I'm going to do really rubbish work. I'm going to wind Fiona up. I'm going to no. But when we receive that, that is exactly what we receive. And we think, what the fuck? Why have they done that? Why have they gone out? That's how our brain immediately goes. Like they wanted to do it. It's nearly always a communication issue. Either the requirements haven't been communicated, or there's a perception thing, or somebody's got something else going on and they're not, purposefully going out their way. So if you can think of that first, I think when you're leading teams and you're working with people, if you can think of that first, this person did not leave their house today wanting to be a shit human being.
And
right,
I think
now, how do we address it?
That ties in perfectly to the beginning of our conversation, because whatever it is going on, what is the key thing here that will help? It's a conversation. It's the words that you use to communicate. If you have good communication, if you have good conversation skills, if you think about the words that you're using, that you're speaking, that you're writing, and how your message is getting across to that person, then I think that builds stronger relationships, whether you are in a business world, a leadership world, entrepreneurial world, whichever world you are in. So I think that ties in just perfectly kind of to the beginning of how our conversation started.
Yeah, and I say to anybody who is on a personal or professional development journey, I'm like, if you could pick one single thing to learn that would be the most powerful and impactful for the rest of your life, it is communication, hands down. So I will fight somebody to the death on that. There is nothing more powerful than working on your communication. Everything else, visibility, and even to an extent, brand, all of that can come second. If you can't communicate, if you can't physically communicate well, if you don't know how, and if you can't understand how other people communicate too, you're gonna get stuck immediately. Like that is the most powerful area of learning, I think. And like I say, how you use your words, how you use your body language, all of that wonderful stuff. Okay, it has been absolutely wonderful to have you here, and we're within the hour. We're a little bit over 45 minutes, but we're in the hour. And any parting wonderful words from you, Fiona, before you go?
Just excuse me, just remembering kind of what we said. I think you really just need to focus on you first, like worrying about writing and how you kind of present yourself to the world. Just think about you, because if you've got that nailed to a T, if you understand who you are, if you love who you are, then it doesn't matter how you come across to other people. You're doing it in an aligned way with your purpose, and you're doing it from a genuine, authentic point of view. And that's where your best business messaging is going to come from. So do that work on you first.
Yeah, start with you. Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for coming on, and I shall see you in person, in the flesh, very soon.
Yes, very soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.